The Dallas Stars absolutely dominated the Buffalo Sabres on Thursday night by beating them 10-4 in their own building. And on today's episode, we'll talk about the big win and why it's so important for the team. And we'll also talk about the injury to Tyler Seguin and when we could expect to see him back on the ice. All of this and more coming up on a Friday episode of Locked On Stars.
You're Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Bing bong.
Howdy, Stars fans. Welcome back to the Locked On Stars podcast, the only daily podcast covering the Dallas Stars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Dane Lewis, your local expert on all things Dallas Stars hockey, coming to you on this Friday, March 10th. And whether this is your first time here or you are a recurring listener, thank you for stopping by and making the Locked On Stars podcast your first listen every single day. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube and leave a comment down below. Let me know what your favorite goal from last night's game was, because you have plenty to choose from. And there were some absolute beauties in that game. But follow us on YouTube. Find us on your favorite podcasting platform of choice. We are always free and available, no matter where or how you may choose to listen. What an incredible offensive output we saw from the Dallas Stars on Thursday night. They kick off their 6-game road trip in Western New York against the Buffalo Sabres. We were expecting them to have a strong performance, a strong game, because you always want to get out to a win and start things off on the right foot, especially when you're going to be away from home for as long as the Stars are about to be away from home. But I don't think any of us were expecting the result that we were given. It was utter insanity on Thursday. The Dallas Stars were all gas, no brakes, as they score 10 goals against the Sabres, allowing 4 on their end. But a performance from the Stars offensively to the likes that we have not seen in years. It's been over a decade since the Dallas Stars last scored 10 goals. February 6, 2009 against the New York Rangers, a 10-2 win for the Dallas Stars then. But that's, again, all the way back in 2009. That's 2 U.S. presidents ago. I was in like 4th or 5th grade back at that point in my life. I mean, this was a long time since we've seen the Dallas Stars score 10. The second time that they've done it in franchise history, still 5 goals shy of the all-time franchise record of 15 goals back when the team was still in Minnesota. I believe that was over the Winnipeg Jets years and years ago, but still, you don't see 10 goals from the Dallas Stars very often. And they are the first team in the National Hockey League to reach the double-digit goal mark this season. And it was just so impressive with how they did it. Just a masterclass offensively all over the ice. 16 different players with points, 10 with multi-point games, 9 different players scoring goals. I mean, just an unbelievable performance. And you look at this Dallas Stars box score, and only 2 players that skated did not get points. Tyler Seguin, who we'll touch on a little bit later, left the game with an injury, and Esa Lindell. We got points from literally everybody else, and multi-point games from Radek Faksa, who had 2 goals. Jamie Benn, a goal and an assist. Joe Pavelski with 2 points. Max Domi chips in. Jason Robertson had 3 assists. Mason Marchment, a goal and 2 assists. A multi-point game for Evgeny Dodonov. Hakanpää, Heiskanen, Suter all getting 2 points. I mean, it was just everybody chipping in offensively and doing their part. And even guys like Esa Lindell still having an impact on the game. 5 shots on goal, 3 hits. Of course, got to always show love to Esa, even when he's not getting a point, which it feels like he definitely should have in this game, because the table was set and everyone was taking advantage of the opportunity. And that's kind of the benefit of playing a team like the Buffalo Sabres, who have been one of the best offensive teams in the league this season, but they have a tendency to let games slip away from them due to the lack of defense and the lack of solid goaltending, which, I mean, I feel awful for the Sabres goaltender, Eric Comrie, who gave up all of the goals. The team left him in And he also records 2 penalty minutes as well. He didn't actually have to serve those penalty minutes in the box, but he did get called. I believe it was a tripping call. Yes, a tripping call against Yoel Kiviranta, served by Casey Middlestat. Just nothing going right for Eric Comrie during this game. Brutal outing for him, but an excellent outing for the Dallas Stars, who record 49 shots on goal, go 1 for 3 on the power play. I mean, what else could you ask for from this team? We stressed about the need to get off to a strong start on this road trip, and I mean, I don't think you can draw up a better result than what we saw on Thursday night. There was some masterful forechecking. So many of the goals, the first one that comes to mind, the first goal in the game, a result of Jamie Benn pressuring the puck along the boards. A strong forecheck eventually results in a Sabres turnover that the Stars turn into a goal. A shot from the top from Yanni Hakanpää that gets tipped in by Wyatt Johnston. We saw Jamie Benn just being active all over the ice, scoring goals, pressuring the puck, moving the puck, some great passing. Jason Robertson connects with both Yoel Kiviranta and Rope Hintz with some beautiful behind the back, almost like Magic Johnson-esque passing, but the hockey version. I mean, just beautiful movement with the puck. The Stars just in the Sabres' head on all areas of the ice, taking advantage of their mistakes and taking advantage of how loosely they were playing the game. And especially by the third period, you just got the sense that the Sabres were ready for the game to be over and just waiting for the clock to run out. But the Stars, again, all gas, no breaks. And I think once you get to 8 or 9, you're thinking, okay, we have to try and get 10. And they did it. And this is exactly how you set the tone for a road trip. You can't expect the opposition to give up as many goals as we saw on Thursday, but the confidence in that locker room right now has to be at an all-time high. And the momentum moving on this road trip is an incredible place right now for this team. A lot of guys who we saw in scoring slumps, starting to get back on track a little bit. We saw Joe Pavelski and Mason Marchment end their goalless streaks against the Colorado Avalanche last weekend, but now both those guys have started to play a lot better. And again, we see Mason Marchment get 3 points in this game. We see Joe Pavelski score a goal of his own on the power play, a vintage Joe Pavelski goal, kind of a one-timer. Don't see a lot of those from Joe Pavelski anymore at this point in his career. Also gets an assist on the Rope Hintz goal, his 31st of the season. And we're starting to see guys like that get back on track offensively. Ryan Suter, who I think it had been 18 games since he had scored a goal, he gets one, as well as some assists to go along with it. A great night for the Dallas Stars defenseman, who is typically the poster child for criticism amongst the fan base, but I feel like it's hard to do a lot of criticism tonight, although the Stars certainly not perfect, giving up 4 goals to the Sabres. But that's also going to happen again against a team in the Sabres that do tend to score quite a bit. They just likely, don't play a ton of defense. And while they probably weren't expecting to give up 10 goals, this is the kind of games that they typically find themselves in. And the Stars just built for it a little bit more with better goaltending. And at the end of the day, just a more high-powered offense, which isn't necessarily easy to do. But the team was just relentless. And this is the kind of mentality, the killer instinct that the team has been missing at points this year, especially over the past month or so. And hopefully a game like this brings it out a little bit more. And this team knows what they're capable of going forward, not just for the majority of the remainder of this road trip, but for the rest of the regular season, and especially once the playoffs roll around. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we got to talk about Tyler Seguin. He leaves the game Thursday night with an injury. What's the outlook looking like? We'll hear from what Pete DeBoer had to say after the game about his star forward right after this. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The midway point of the NBA season is here, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers can get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scorers and threes drained. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets back when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. I want to thank you again for making the Locked On Stars podcast your first listen of the day. Talking about last night's win in Buffalo, the Stars take down the Sabres 10-4. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows after this one, as there is an unfortunate side of this game that comes on the injury front. Stars forward Tyler Seguin leaves the game during, or kind of limps off the ice during the first period, doesn't get back out there. And then during the first intermission, it is announced via the Stars social media account that Seguin would not be returning to the game. And as great as it is to see this team get the win, Tyler Seguin going down is huge for this team. And this is a weird time of year where we're starting to see a few different players, especially in the Western Conference, go down with some injuries. We saw Kirill Kaprizov take a scary fall a few nights ago in one of their games, and now he's listed out for 3 to 4 weeks. And it's just that time of year where the wear and tear of the season starts to catch up with a few players. And hopefully Tyler Seguin will not be out for too long. The media talked to Pete DeBoer after the game in Buffalo, and according to Coach DeBoer, Tyler Seguin has been stitched up, and there were many reports, both from the Buffalo side of things and the Stars side of social media, saying that Seguin had his left leg wrapped up and that he was on crutches. But really, as far as I can see, no further updates at this time. I'm sure that he is being evaluated as the team gets to Seattle just to see where he's at. Don't necessarily know the extent of the injury, but I'm sure many of you watched on the broadcast or saw at the game. Seguin was certainly in a great deal of pain on the ice after taking a fall along the boards in the first period. Huge bummer for this team and what was otherwise an excellent night for the Stars, and something that hopefully they're still able to take a ton of momentum from and leave in good spirits, but also knowing that there's a player, one of their guys who has been along the ride this season and been a key contributor at several different points of the season, is now injured. And it's just awful timing, which there's never really a good time for a hockey player to get injured, but especially now this late in the season. Seguin finally getting some reinforcements, if you will, on that second line. He seemed to be finding some great chemistry with Max Domi, who's been playing very well since coming to Dallas. Mason Marchment, his plays finally kind of going on the upward trajectory. It was really a nice time to finally see the second line, one, have kind of the same cast of characters for a little bit. There's been a lot of shuffling pieces on that second line. It seemed like we finally had the pieces that we needed, and now we don't really know how much we're going to be seeing that here in the near future. And while I think Domi and Marchment can certainly still hold their own, there's a lot of questions of what the lineup needs to look like now. And I'm sure if Seguin is not good to go for some games on this trip, that they can dip back down into the AHL. They can add guys to the roster like Freddie Karlstrom or Frederick Olofsson, guys like that. We've seen Mate Blumel come up, Riley Tufte. I'm curious to see what the team does if Tyler Seguin has to be out for an extended period of time. And I'm confident that they can shuffle the pieces around and find a good fit. Maybe you move a guy like Ty Dellandrea up to the second line. I think he and Mason Marchment have some good chemistry. And of course, Max Domi, I think, has shown that he can play well with just about anybody. And then you can have that fourth line of Kivi Ranta, Radek Faksa, and then if Luke Glendening is able to come back, you can slide him in there. Or maybe you slide one of the Freddies into those spots to play on that fourth line, while you can put Dellandrea, who has a great amount of experience, up on the second line, where I don't think that would be too big of an ask for a guy like him. But at the end of the day, all we can do is hope and pray that Tyler Seguin is going to be okay, that he's not going to be out for too long. Wishing him the best in his recovery. We know that he's a tough guy and that he is going to be back out on the ice as soon as he possibly can. He's a key player for this team. As much criticism as he draws, I know at the end of the day, we all love and adore Tyler Seguin and what he does on the ice for this team. And he is going to be a pivotal player for them down the stretch this regular season. And especially once the playoffs get here, they're going to need Seguin to be at his absolute best. So wishing him a successful road to recovery, however long that may be. And hopefully we see 91 back on the ice sooner rather than later, because the team is going to need all hands on deck here as the season begins to wind down. Well, we're going to take one more quick break, but when we come back, we'll look ahead to this weekend. The Dallas Stars taking on the Seattle Kraken on Saturday night as they head out west for the remainder of this road trip in Seattle, as well as the western part of Canada. All right, everybody, we are closing out this week here at Locked On Stars. Thank you guys again for tuning in every day this week. And the team, in theory, the Stars, off to a great start on this road trip. Theoretically, they should maybe be scrutinized a little bit more for allowing 4 goals in this game to the Sabres. But as I did touch on a little bit earlier in the show, that's kind of the nature of the beast with the Buffalo Sabres. If you've been kind of watching them or following them this season, you know that they can absolutely bury the puck. They can score goals, but they also do that at the expense of not really defending very well. Some would say it's almost like how the NBA does defense in their All-Star game. That's kind of what it looked like out there in the third period, especially in last night's game. But it's not necessarily the fact that the Stars gave up 4 goals, because that is going to happen, especially against good teams. It's more the manner in which they were surrendering those goals. Many of those goals were coming just mere seconds after the Stars scored on their own. The Stars took a 3-0 lead in the first period, pretty late in the first period. And then 10 seconds after Jamie Benn scores his 27th goal of the season, we see the Sabres respond instantly, like literally 10 seconds apart. Jordan Greenway gets his 3rd of the season, his first as a Buffalo Sabre ever since coming over from Minnesota at the trade deadline. And then even in the second period, we see Yoel Kiviranta score his 7th of the season. And then about a minute later, we see Sabres captain Kyle Okposo score a goal. And then even, I mean, the game kind of out of hand, but Rope Hint scores the goal to put the Stars up, 9-3. And then Victor Olofsson scores about 15 seconds later. So a little bit messy. And again, that's just kind of what you come to expect with a team like the Sabres. And obviously things did work out in the end for the Dallas Stars, but this is not something that they need to make a habit of doing going forward, especially on this road trip, because you're not going to score 10 goals on this road trip. Most likely, again, you're going to be playing teams that have a little bit more sound of a defensive base, and maybe even in some cases a little bit better goaltending than what the Sabres put out on the ice on Thursday, especially against a team like the Edmonton Oilers or even the Seattle Kraken, who at sometimes can get hot and really start to bury pucks in the back of the net. And even if their goaltending or defense isn't great, you just cannot put yourself in that position where you're allowing goals mere seconds after scoring a goal on your own. That's something that the Stars have been pretty good at this season. They've, of course, have had their, run-ins with some problems like we saw last night, but for the most part, they've been very good at not allowing that instant response goal from the opponents. And that's something they need to look to get back to for the remainder of this road trip. But at the end of the day, you want to, look for things that the Stars can improve on and work on. The defense can always be a little bit more sound and a little less leaky. Jake Ottinger still, I think, did fine. Certainly not his best night, but he was actually getting some really good insurance from his offense. So that's not really going to be a storyline from this game, although you would like to see a little bit more from him and a little bit more from the defense around him, which I'm sure is something that will be addressed and worked on as this team continues to travel on, as they play Seattle on Saturday and Monday, and then as they move into Canada in the latter stages of next week. At the end of the day, though, 2 points is 2 points, and the Stars did it in convincing fashion, which I think is the most important part, because they needed to start this trip out on the right foot. But now it's the team's duty to not ride the high too high. And I think, again, this is something the Stars have been great at this season, is they're able to manage the feels of the season very well. So when things are going great, they ride just high enough to where they have some confidence. They have a little bit of mojo going, but they're not overly confident in themselves, and they're not thinking too far ahead into the future. They're still taking care of the business that's in front of them, and it's still taking things one game at a time. And when things aren't going great, they're not too down on themselves. They're not too far down in the dumps where they're not able to fully recover. And so it's all about finding balance there, of celebrating this win, being excited that you scored 10 goals, but knowing that you still have a tough road ahead, both literally with this road trip, but also just with the race for the conference and the division here in the final 15, 16 games or so to close out this regular season. And a big part of that is going to be continuing to do the little things right. At the end of the day, I think that's why the Dallas Stars won in the way that they did. You compare the Dallas Stars to the Buffalo Sabres, and you can just see the veteran experience on full display on the Stars roster. I think the Buffalo Sabres are a great young team, loaded with great young talent, but their attention to detail was awful on Thursday night, whereas the Dallas Stars were doing a ton of the little things correctly, winning in the faceoff dot, winning those puck battles along the board, whether it's Jamie Benn or a defenseman or another forward like Radek Faksa, pressuring the puck, using their sticks to clog up passing lanes, making those smart passes, waiting that extra second before passing the puck to give your teammate a better opportunity. Things that aren't always going to show up on the stat sheet, but the things that the Stars time and time again do very, very well. And if you continue to do those things right, like you did on Thursday, I think you're going to find a lot of success here down the home stretch of the season. The Stars' ability to pay that attention to detail, to do the little things right, is what is going to make or break them at the end of the day this season. If they're going to go on a deep playoff run, they're going to make some noise in the playoffs and make a run to win the West and make it to the Stanley Cup Finals, they're going to have to play with the intensity that they played with on Thursday. Because even when the game was out of hand and they had the win locked up, they didn't stop. They could have scored 7 or 8 goals, but then let the Sabres get 5 or 6. But they found a way, for the most part, to stop the bleeding defensively and were able to keep the intensity going offensively, where there was never a doubt that they were going to win this game. And we need to see more of that on this road trip. And I'm excited to see how this team comes out on Saturday night against the Seattle Kraken, riding the momentum from Thursday night's win. But that is going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Stars. Thank you so much again for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. Remember to hit that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. Hit the follow button on your favorite podcasting platform of choice. We'll, of course, be back here on Monday talking about Saturday night's game in Seattle and then talking about Monday night's game also in Seattle. The Stars playing the Kraken back-to-back with a day off in between on Sunday. So we'll be talking all things Stars and Kraken on Monday's episode, looking to their previous matchup and looking ahead to the matchup that is to come. Should be a ton of fun, and I'm excited for the next week to see even more of the Dallas Stars flexing their muscles on the road. But I hope you guys have a great Friday. Enjoy your weekend and take care of yourselves, and we'll see you back here on Monday.